Michael.
Hello, Robbie. Sorry I'm a couple
you?
minutes late, man. I was reading some of the new reviews.
Oh, were you now? Well,
Yeah.
I'd say that's a good reason for just being a few minutes late. And hey, it's technically, man, we really can't ever be late.
I know.
But I appreciate the sincere apology.
Very sincere. Yeah, it's true. We can't be late, but we can.
Yeah, it's true. We have 24 hours to not be late.
Right.
Twice a week is basically what the rule is.
We really do try to get these released super early in the morning so you can get on the trainer because it's snowing all over the place, it seems like, except here.
God, no kidding.
Man. Getting all these pictures sent to me and videos about 10 inches of snow, and I've been outside riding, it seems like, for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's been pretty good here. A little rainy, but with bouts of sunshine and warmth. So not much to complain about for us in the South.
No, not too much. Should I read one of these reviews real quick? Because the reviews I've found, as you mention all the time, are helpful for letting other people find it because it gets, more iTunes juju and kind of pushes things out there, I guess. But it also kind of pumps us up, I think. I mean,
it's fulfilling,
yeah,
for sure.
It's super fulfilling.
Just to hear and kind of takes you back sometimes. But yeah, I think I'm mostly caught up in most of them. But yeah, and in case you didn't know, these are actually reviews about the Crushing Iron Triathlon podcast. This is episode 151. Thank you for joining us.
Did you read all these?
I may be up to date. I'm not sure, but let it rip, and I'll let you know if I'm up to date or not.
Did you read the one that says so good that I created an account to make a review?
I don't think I've read that one. No.
That's by Joel.
Joel, love you, buddy.
It's hard to describe in a limited space what this podcast has given me. It's also hard to admit that a podcast was the difference in my finally reaching my goal of doing a triathlon after years of dabbling on and off. The triathlon talk is great, but what really stands out is the discussion about the mental side of the activity and balancing it with outside life. It's a breath of fresh air to finally find a podcast that can relate to someone who only wants to run sprint and Olympic distance, while also relating to those who do a full and half Ironman. Maybe you did read this.
Yeah, I read that one. I wasn't going to burst your bubble though. Why don't you read it?
All right, let me just read a quick other one.
Yeah, we have read that one. Hey, but it was so good, Joel. We might as read it twice.
That's right, Joel. You did, man. Well,
it's a late April Fool's read. So fooled you. All right, on to the next one.
All right, this one says comfortable from Luke Clay. Did you read this one?
I don't.
At first, you will listen and say, "What is all this rambling talk? Where is the triathlon talk?" Then they get into it, and it just ends up feeling like you're in a room with your good friends that are more knowledgeable about triathlons. I love the rambling talk about anything, and it feels comfortable and informal. So, I was kind of thinking that, basically this podcast is pretty much accessible to beginners and informative to advanced, or maybe stimulating to advanced triathletes. Yeah. Is that fair?
I think it is fair. I think there's solid knowledge and reminders for everyone. So yeah, I think that's definitely something that applies to the wide range of and that's what we want to be. We want to be. It needs to be comfortable, and I know there are a lot of podcasts out there in terms of endurance training and triathlon that you can choose to use your time to listen to. And I'm sure that most people, if not all of you that are listening, probably do listen to other podcasts. And so, but yeah, we really do strive to give as much information as we can and do it and deliver it in a way that's easy to digest, and comfortable, and won't make you feel like you're overreaching in terms of what you're trying to knowledge. At least when you leave the podcast, you can apply it instead of having to do more research on ways to distribute it. So yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, and fortunately or unfortunately, I don't think it's like we haven't set it up so it's sort of like a one-off. I mean, we do have some that are specifically focused with high intensity on certain things, but for the most part, we're kind of like a ongoing sitcom.
I like that. Yeah, we're the Seinfeld of triathlon.
Exactly. Yeah, that's probably about right.
Which is the highest form of compliment, in my opinion.
Well, thanks for complimenting me.
Yeah, it's do what I can, man.
And okay, so it must be noted that we also do coaching, and we have a website called crushingiron.com if you haven't been there, and we have all the information about coaching, including pricing and philosophy and all that other stuff. And then we have camps, which we have a camp coming up very soon. I am constantly reminded by my dog barking.
Yep, Maddie's pumped.
Yep. And what else do we have?
We got swim analysis that we do as well. Videos that we put out. We've got some great swimming instructional videos that are on YouTube and on our website. And as I mentioned before in a couple other podcasts, since we are pretty much into the meat of here race season, and everybody's looking for things to kind of get them pumped, and if you're doing Ironman Chattanooga and you're searching Ironman Chattanooga videos, you will more than likely see one of Mike's incredible tribute videos. He's got Louisville, Wisconsin, Chattanooga, and a couple years in those in there. They all have 4, 5, 6,000 YouTube views, I think, and so they're really great to view and watch, and take a time to watch and listen to those. And then and you can always just check out basically everything that we do in terms of crushing iron and coaching and training. You always go to crushingiron.com, and that is our one-stop shop for everything that we do, everything that we provide: videos, content, coaching, training plans, swim analysis, camps, gear, you name it. You can find it all there, and as well as obviously information about the podcasts. So
And of course, there's the closed Facebook group, which you can find by searching Crushing Iron Group on Facebook. It is a closed group. There's over 800 or so people in there now, and the only place we talk about it is here. So it's not like spammed out to the world. It's a pretty select group of people that enjoy the podcast, want to get better, don't spend the whole day throwing crazy stuff around. It's usually pretty cool and interesting conversation. So,
yep,
there is that. I don't know what you got going on your mind today. The topic. Landscaping. You're trying to get your mind off of triathlon. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, I'm saying it's just funny how tapering has changed over the years. I think it happened. For me, but I think it also, like, your idea of what needs to happen during a taper is also very relative to how you feel you've trained. I remember back when I would I would train pretty solid, but maybe not as consistent and as focused as I have now. And if it was 2 weeks before a race, everything, but I got a race coming up. I'm just gonna kick back, relax, sit on the couch, do this. Everything was about the race. Every meal, everything I didn't do, putting things off. I'll just do it after the race. I'll just do it after the race. And I don't want to, and I need to get off my legs. Listen, if you've really trained really well, what is a couple hours doing this and that really going to affect the outcome? And man, the last 2 weekends, we've been very busy at the Bruce household in terms of outdoor landscaping. Saturday, I did my last solid bike and run session, and came right home without a shower and mowed the yard, trimmed everything, and then we finished building a rock box for Hayden, which meant building the box up against our fence and then shoveling and moving gravel, which, if you've ever shoveled and moved gravel, it is the worst. It is heavy as all get out and hard to transport. We did that Saturday, and I gotta admit, I was pretty beat. But then we woke up on Easter morning, and hey, what do you want to do on Easter morning? I want to go to Lowe's. And so, yeah, we hit up Lowe's and bought some new
I thought you were going to
plant.
say Loveless Cafe.
No, we didn't. No, I'm not driving. Listen, if I'm driving all the way out there, I'm hitting the Trace, baby. I'm not going to Loveless.
Yeah.
And we bought some flowers, and I put some flowers and roses out front. And we did some planter boxes on our front porch. Put some vegetables in Allie's garden out back. And after that, I thought, we did some Easter festivities. And the next thing you know, at around 5 o'clock last night, I found myself digging a drainage ditch for a French drain in our backyard.
A French drain? Ooh.
Yeah. I know it sounds very, very landscape artistic, but really it's just a ditch with a pipe in it with some gravel over it. But we've got this really uneven part in the right side of our yard up against the fence where it collects water, and our neighbor's gutters from next door basically shove water down to it, and it's just muddy. And so I dug the ditch yesterday, and we're gonna get some drainage stuff and try to get a French drain in there so it can stop soaking up that side of our yard.
You've got a new neighborhood, so you and your neighbors are still trying to figure out the ins and outs of drainage.
Yeah, especially the neighbor, the guys that we like, the ones to the if you're looking at our house, the ones to the right, those are our favorite neighbors. We're good friends. The ones on the other side, we don't like them very much. So, and we didn't lie. I didn't really much of a fan of them already, just because of a few other issues with our fence. But nobody needs neighbors that mow and then don't weed eat. I'm just gonna lay it out there. Nobody needs a neighbor like that. If you're gonna mow your grass, weed eat and trim. Don't even have the dedication and commitment to move your trash cans on wheels to weed eat that space. It's just it's unsightly. But hey, it's your yard, not mine. But yeah, that was my training over the weekend. And but yeah, I feel good. But I think it's good to I can either do stuff and stay focused and still knock things out, or I can just sit, and then obviously all I'm just going to do is just sit and be lazy and just feel lazy and think about the race and overanalyze things. And so I was like, yeah, I can stay busy, I can stay active, my mind won't wander, and I'm still accomplishing things. Because what I don't want to do is do you want to get out of your routine a little bit in terms of training? Sure, but I just don't feel like altering your entire routine to basically feel lazy, just a knot on a log. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I'll definitely relax more than usual, but more than a week out, I just don't want to just bum it out and just sit. I think you just feel it gets your body just out of it. So I feel I just can go ahead and keep doing what I've been doing, and hey, if I can make the wife happy in the process, that's a win-win.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I was on Tri-Calc while you were saying that.
Oh Christ, are you serious? You're not even racing. You're over there messing around on Tri-Calc and talking about important landscaping topics, and you're over there browsing Tri-Calc.
Oh no. I mean, I was listening.
You're not Tri-Calcing me, are you?
No. I have no idea.
Good.
Because what I was thinking about yesterday was this whole concept of race confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Confidence. How can you build? And I've been riding a lot. I haven't necessarily been running a lot, but I have been mixing the run in. And yesterday I went out for a great little run, no watch, or not. I wore it, but I didn't look at it, and which I think we ought to dive into a little bit more, because a lot of people seem like they've been talking about it in the closed group. You've been kind of on this, try running without the watch, but with the watch thing. But anyway, so. It kind of occurred to me that, I have been getting back at it. I do intend on creating a little whiteboard series to keep people informed about my training for Chattanooga 70.3. But this concept of confidence, how fleeting it is. And really, I think the bottom line is that confidence just comes from doing stuff. And over, because it is finally starting to get to the point where I'm like, I'm feeling like, all right, I'm getting to the place where I need to be. And, but but having confidence in yourself as that race comes up is a tricky one.
Yep.
And I mean, like with someone like me, I have played a lot of sports in the past, so I kind of just sort of have that confidence from that, in the sense that I've done events a lot. You know what I mean? Like I've had nerve-wracking days before and 2 days before and things like that. But the real confidence builder I'm finding in triathlon is just consistency.
Right.
And the more you get out there and the more you execute things that you will have to face in the race, the more confident you get in general about everything. And because it's such a burden sometimes, triathlon hangs over you. And like, it's funny you mentioned that. I mean, I think that's just confidence you're talking about, when you can get out there and just start doing rock gardens and doing drain ditches. And that's because you're feeling good about your training. And a lot of times when we're not confident, and how the taper is dictated by how you have been training, that's kind of an interesting point that you brought up, because I do think that, if you're not trained up going into taper, you're looking for little hacks or little trickery things that, whether it's like, man, should I eat some Brazilian nuts to try and really, whatever the case is, you're always looking. That I say
should I start guzzling beet juice for 2 weeks, because that's gonna really up my endurance for the race. Yeah, all that kind of stuff.
You should. But you should probably be doing it before 2 weeks.
Yeah,
I guess that's the point.
Exactly.
So anyway, it was funny because like I said, I hadn't, been running. Yesterday was my first. I went out, and we have that podcast, Running Slow to Get Fast, and the real thing behind that for me is that I'm still, I have a good base because I've been training for 5 years now. I mean, a fairly good base comparatively to when I started. So I am more in the term of, it's kind of late to be building my chassis, but I'm still thinking about my chassis, my foundation. And so I'm not really going out to really do speed work, and I don't know if I'm going to be doing speed work. I'm doing it on the bike, but I'm a little leery of starting to get too heavy into my speed with my running.
Right. As you should be.
Yeah. It's more like, okay, I just want to go out right now and like wake up today like I did and feel like, I feel like I want to do some training today. That's kind of my spot. But so I went out slow without thinking about the watch, and I got to tell you, man, it felt good, and I was really just thinking about my breath and not getting out of breath and things like that, and I had a surprising pace when I got done.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What now? Tell me, why was it surprising?
Well, because of the last few times I've gone out, the last couple of weeks when I have run, I've kind of just, I kind of dabble around just to see where I'm at, like everybody does, and I'll be going, and I'll be like, man, I think I'm cooking, and I'll look at my watch, and I'm like, yeah, not super cooking. So like, just for example, I don't feel very fast right now, even though I think I do when I'm running. It feels, but like anything 8:30 and below feels like I'm really, really going after it these days.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And yesterday I ran out for like 6.5 miles with, over the bridge and into the. It's an area that's sort of hilly when you go up over the bridge and through the state park and back to the school. I mean, it's not like monster hills, but it's pretty good hills. And that was pretty much a lot of my route, maybe like half of the route. And I didn't look at my watch, and I got done, and my overall average was like 8:46 with all those hills. And I'm talking about before. But it was interesting. But I think a lot of that has to do with the bike too. But a lot of biking I've been doing. But we'll see.
And I mean, are you afraid of getting injured if you let the speed work come in, or are you just trying to be really careful and cautious because you want to be able to continue to run and ride? You don't want to be shelled and out of it for 3 or 4 days.
Well, yeah, I think I've been really, like I said, pushing it hard on the bike, and I haven't been running a lot. So I guess I'm afraid of, not as much afraid of getting injured as getting wiped out for 3 days because I go after a run that I'm not ready for.
Yep.
And I wake up the next day and I'm limping and I'm sore, and it's just because the body hasn't adjusted. So I guess I'm just, instead of going after something, I'm just sort of inching things up there.
Hurry slowly,
yeah, and trying to be rational with my approach to running, and and that's why I threw the hills in, because hill work, simulates sprinting in a way to me that, muscle, firing, and it's hard and all that sort of stuff. So haven't been going hard or fast necessarily up the hills, but I've been going steady, so I know that I'm working my way back into it.
Well, and it's a much safer way, going up the hill versus, running all out on flat ground, concrete and pavement. Running is like it, man, it is, I think, definitely the toughest training to master of all three. I think swimming technique-wise is the hardest for people to grasp, just because it is by far the most technical of all three. And then, frankly, people just don't like to swim hard, so they stay the same speed. And then there's just so much confusing information. It's always going to be the least attractive of the three. So I think that's what deters people from getting the right information or taking the next steps and getting faster and working harder. But I think running is the one that, for most people, is really the most the one you have to be the most cautious about, and also by far the one you see athletes being the absolute most irresponsible with. And there's so many, as a coach, it's like, I've never had an athlete come back from a bike ride, they've gone too long, and I've been like, oh, this is probably going to be bad tomorrow. I think I said it like the other day, like, oh, somebody went for like an extra, Liz in Australia, she went for like an extra hour or so on the bike. She's like, I hope it's okay. I'm like, you're never, almost ever going to hear me complain about you going over on the bike, because it's like little to no risk, because it's no impact. You might be over fatigued the next day, but we're not asking your skeletal system and your joints and tendons and ligaments to hold up for 40% longer on tired legs than we were previously looking for. It's something that I can confidently live with as a coach, or even asking an athlete to do, is to go longer, knowing that you're on the bike and you're good. It's like it's almost like the same as like saying, hey, can I aqua jog for 2 hours longer than you asked me to? Yeah, you can. You're gonna be bored to hell, and it's not gonna do much good, but it's not gonna do any damage, But you go out and you have somebody running, especially when they're getting started, or the two most nerve-wracking times for me as a coach is when you have athletes who are just starting, kind of getting into their run and want to get it all back in one day. The ones who want to chase where they want to be, not where they are, in terms of upping up the frequency, and they always want to run harder than what you ask them to do, and then the other time I get kind of have to be the most cautious and overly communicate sometimes is when athletes are doing a lot of running like they have been. After 6, 8, 10 weeks, they start to see some really big fitness gains from just going their usual, zone 1, zone 2 has dropped from an 11 down to a 9 with no speed work, just frequency. Like, that's really honestly all you have to do until you get to a point. And then they start to find out they've got this new speed, and then they get kind of back and revert to like the same mindset they did when they started, which was trying to chase the speed. And now they want to push themselves and kind of, it's like we always talk about the chassis and running and using your body as a durable car. And it's like they've been building their car for like, it's 4 months. the sun comes out and they get to take it around the block for a spin for like 2 miles, and they just get to see how powerful and fast it really becomes. And now they want to take it out and drive it every damn day. But the car's not ready yet. Does that make sense? And instead of just being patient and like, all right, and I've got athletes especially like coming off injuries or doing this or early season, and it's like, hey, now that because sometimes I'll just wait like 4, 6, sometimes 8 weeks to even include any speed work. And when I say speed work, I'm not even talking track workouts. I'm talking like 30 to 60 second hill repeats. I'm talking some tempo, longer in tempo efforts. And if once I start even like adding those in, I have to be very clear. Okay, this effort is only allocated to these days. Don't try to pull these off every single day, because once they see these like brand new numbers and brand new paces, they're like, oh well, I want that every day.
Oh man, yeah.
I want it. It's that addiction that they had before that you had to kind of deprogram to now. They're like, oh well, crap, I didn't think I'd ever be this fast. Now all I want is this. Like when you become a data junkie and you go and like especially when you do like the same routes all the time, every day, like our guys like you and I that hit the lab and ride the same routes, and like you're chasing, you go back to like chasing your bests, your great days, and sometimes you're just not going to have them, and so you tend to athletes tend to overdo it and overextend themselves because they feel too good. And it's just, you have to be so patient, not only with the progress you're making, but to not overextend yourself. We always talk about in training, you only have so many matches to burn over the course of the year. And there's nothing wrong with striking the match every once in a while just to kind of see, to see how big the flame might be. But so many athletes will often burn matches on their running, and hopefully live to regret it for just 2 or 3 or 4 days to recover, or sometimes they'll have to regret it for 2, 3, 4 weeks, depending on how bad their shell. But it's cycling kind of is what it is. I think for a lot of people, still not as much. There's still confusing information out there, but swimming is confusing information on technique, and then running is the one where you see the most people posting about on social media or on Garmin or on Strava or this and that, and you see other people doing 2 hour, 2.5 hour, 3 hour runs. You see them doing track workout Tuesday and all this kind of stuff, and then you think like, oh well, I've got to be doing that. So you start chasing and you start pushing, and it is the scariest of all three, I think, for coaches, because it can end up so poorly.
We all grow up, in the playground, running around, and that's just sort of the most familiar with most people. People are, grow up running around just because kids run around.
Mm-hmm.
And of course they bike, but for the most part, we're running every day as a child, either in the playgrounds or whatever. And I think back to the even when I was in high school or junior high, when I was probably in the best shape of my life, running used to gas me back then, but I forget that, so that we kind of think in our heads that well, we've always been running and this is kind of what I have. But it's like 20-30 years later, and you still think you kind of have that flexibility and ability to recover and things like that, and it can really take you out of your stride if you go over your capabilities while you're running. And
mm-hmm.
I back to it's sort of this slow burn again, but back to the one track workout we did that one time when we were training for that half at Muncie, and I loved how you set up the it was quote unquote speed work, but it was basically just this idea of sort of blindly trying to run like 10 miles or whatever we did, and every lap or every mile, try to make it go down just a little bit, and to start at and just every mile just sort of like negative split the next mile or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like all on speed work, but it was mental, and it was focused on getting that feeling in your body just to go a little bit faster rather than to go over the top with it, because I just don't think most of us are in good enough shape to do speed work. You know?
You said it.
I did?
Yeah, I mean, I've believed that for a very long time. Speed work is one of those things where athletes like to say they're going out to do it and are rarely ever actually prepared for it. Prepared to be durable enough to actually withstand the amount of speed work that's going to be good for them, and then be able to get up and do something actually purposeful the next day. It is one of those run for show kind of things. Yeah, I'm just knocking out some speed work at the track, going to do some 400s. Like, okay, first of all, your 400 pace and your 400 form is you're never going to look like any of that in a race. But however, doing things, like pushing long efforts that aren't, going over, pushing things on a hill that are 30, 60, seconds where you have to practice good form, but it's going uphill and it's driving and it's not taking the pounding. It's just most athletes, but you'll see, and I guess most oftentimes when I see, at least, most athletes that do like a Track Tuesday, Track Tuesday is one of their only 3 runs of the week, because they're either choose to not make time for frequency and consistency in running, to run 4, 5, 6, 7 days a week like you're supposed to and need to, or they don't think they need to because they got in a speed session. And I think that they would be surprised on how much their running programming and training could look differently without doing this so-called track or speed work. I think it's, I don't want to say that it's overrated, but it kind of is. It kind of is. It's more for show, I think, for a lot of athletes. It is more for show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially in long. I mean, I think there's a place, but if you're going to do track workouts, like really do track workouts, with sprinting 400s and 800s and things like that. I mean, like I said, most of us I don't think are even anywhere near in shape to really be pulling that off, especially as you get older and you haven't really been, doing the fast sprint type work. But you should really spend probably a couple months getting your body in balance and strength, while like lifting weights and flexibility things and all these sorts of things before you even start something like that.
Preach.
So you're in on it?
Tell us, Coach. Keep going. I'm in. I'm just gonna sit back here and color. No, I'm serious, man. Like, just think about it for a minute. You're gonna go to a track, and you're going to run harder than you're probably prepared for. Mm-hmm. Okay, that your body's not prepared for. Then you're gonna run with the run form. So let's say that you run 40 miles a week. Your 40 miles, that run form, cadence, foot strike, how much of it is going to be like your 400 repeat on the track? Zero,
yeah.
And then you're going to run in a freaking circle. So you're always going to be leaning in. I've seen more people get hurt on the track than in any other surface, period. Because they're running at a speed they're not used to, at a speed they can't handle, and their body can't handle, in a form that they're not used to. Then they're running in a freaking circle. So they're always going to be leaning in, whether they think, even on the straightaways, whether they think it or not. In order to stay on your line, you're leaning. So let's say you're going counterclockwise. You're leaning to the left. And then you're going to run on the curves, leaning in and putting more force on one leg than the other. So let's run harder than we're actually capable of to withstand. Then let's try a different form. And then let's try to put a disproportionate amount of load onto one side of my body. Dude, that sounds like a recipe for success. It's a recipe for disaster. Like, and people do it all. Like, yeah, but I switch sides after, I alternate laps. So what? Like I don't like. Yeah, do you want to? If you want to try some and work the straightaway, sure. But it is the most overrated, most injury prone, run for show training that any and all triathletes do. Is that coupled with the 3 hour long run are like worst ideas ever. And you see athletes do it all the time. So next time that you go track, think about it. Am I gonna ever run this pace in a race? Should now, caveat, should you do, over race pace stuff? Absolutely. But I'm gonna run 400s or 800s or mile repeats on this track, and I'm gonna lean one way on my body, and I'm gonna change my cadence probably too with longer strides, and I'm going to change my run form, and I'm going to overexert myself because I only run 3 days a week, but surely I can do one regular workout, one track workout, and one long run. And yeah, that sounds like a good, solid idea for sustained success and health. No, it doesn't. So think about it. Hey, you can call me wrong if you want to, but,
Well, no, I think that there's a place for it, like high-level, athletes that are, primed for that sort of stuff. I mean, if you're in that kind of shape, and I think there is benefits to running hard, but for most of us, it's probably we should do our track workouts in the pool. You know what I mean? With just like running in the pool. I mean, because if you're going to work on that high stride and knee lift, I don't think there's any thing wrong with building your body to a different place, but to try to do that with all that impact and the tendon, I mean, just the subliminal recovery problems
exactly.
you're creating there.
And you could add. I would argue you could add 2 more runs a week, and shelve your track workout, and just simply add 4 to 6 strides every other run workout, and get way more benefit. Yeah,
I mean, we're talking specific to triathlon here too. That's the thing. Is like too many times people separate out each sport, but in the reality of it all, we're trying to combine 3 sports and do them all optimally within a race.
Yeah, I mean, I think that and I was actually having this kind of going back and forth with my athletes, Pike out in Tahoe, and he was talking about evenly paced runs sometimes can be harder than for a lot of athletes getting close to 70.3 stuff. I've always been a fan of the negative split. I'm always negative split. Obviously, you won't always be able to, but in racing, and we talk about this all the time with even just open running races and triathlons, is you may start out at running let's say you start running out an 8-minute mile, and that might feel like a 6 or a 7 on your scale of 1 to 10. Well, as the race progresses and as the miles click one by one, in order to keep that 8-minute pace, your effort level is going to have to rise to a 6, to a 7. So if you don't train your body and your mind in training to do late session hard running. And when I say hard running, I'm talking zone 3. I'm not talking zone 4, zone 5, hill repeats and, that late excuse me, I'm talking not 5K speed. I'm talking gradual teaching your mind and your body to run harder with more tired legs, because that's the mindset and the ability to make your body go faster when it doesn't want to hold on. And that's also the biggest mistake athletes make when they go out for open marathons or half marathons, whatever, is they start out with no buffer. And and they do it in training too. Sometimes they go out trying to PR a 10-mile run, and then by mile 6, you're like, I kind of blew my load here. The first 6 miles, and this last is going to suck. But if you teach them to slowly go about it, then what happens is when the race comes is you'll say, okay, because listen, most athletes start out their run at an 8. Well, then by mile, if they're doing a half marathon, and by mile 4, they're already at a 9 or a 10 to hold that same pace.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
now you have nowhere else to go. You don't really want to get to a 10 Like for me, like when I think about racing in Galveston this weekend, like if I can get to like mile 9 on the run and I'm not really at a 10 yet, then I think I'm in good shape, because I can hold on to a 10 for a 5K. I can hold on for 22, 23 minutes and say I can handle being at a 10 and being at my max, knowing that the end is near for less than 25 minutes. Mentally, it just seems achievable. Whereas you hit a 10 at mile 6, and you're like, oh, damn it, this is gonna suck.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you're at that. I've got more to go at a 10 than I do, than I did at the rest. And so it's about pacing and understanding and making your body do things, it doesn't need to, but it's also doing it on, and that's where I think also like your fool's gold can come in training is athletes that only run maybe 2-3 times a week, is that becomes their training paces and their training runs become their exact almost race pace, because they're always fresh. They're always fresh. Whereas you work with athletes who, and me, like I don't give days off unless it's like an absolute necessary, like an absolute necessity. You don't get a day off. There's a day off isn't the cure for everything. Most oftentimes it's the opposite. But you work with athletes and they've done 6, 8, 9, 12 weeks of just consistent training, and they've got all this they've got super deep fitness, because they've been seeing their run pace, get faster and faster and faster. But they've also got, we have a great podcast, a really popular podcast called Accumulated Fatigue. They've got this deep fitness, but it's also masked by their deep fatigue. And so even though what they see in training is faster, sometimes I have to remind them, or sometimes I just don't, because I like to see that they're surprised when they race, is once they get really, really fresh, they've like stripped open these layers of fitness that they didn't even know existed, because they haven't really been able to tap into it, because their legs have been heavy. And so if it's a 5K, 10K, half, like duathlon, whatever it is, like, and depending on if it's an important race or not and how long you want to taper or not, like there's, when you're consistent, you're running 4 or 5, I got a lady who just did like her last long run for Boston, and I think she finished up like a 200-mile month for running. And we're doing like 5-6 runs a week, obviously, and this was her last long run. And I was like, hey, and you felt that good, and you were happy with that run after 200 miles in the legs this month. Can you imagine what they're going to feel like after 10 days of just like super chill? And so that's where you see athletes who, it's like my training, your long runs look like this, but if you're always rested for them, then they're just going to kind of be what they're going to be. And whereas if you have like a really deep fitness, you honestly don't have, you shouldn't, or let's hope not. Let's hope that your race is just way faster and much faster than your training. Because if you're being that consistent, then that's the load you should have created, and your body's been able to withstand it. And you've got this deep fitness you've been earned by consistency and hard work and maintaining, a healthy balance and rolling and doing all these kind of things. And then you freshen up, and that's what I hope to find on Sunday. Mm-hmm. As your legs are finally opening up, things feel a little bit easier. You're like, oh man, like this feels a lot easier, and that's how it's supposed to be, and it's not that, I feel like it comes up on every podcast now, but it's not, train hard, race easy. It's, the paces will feel easier in a race at the beginning, but then at every point it just gets to where you just want to just full throttle and find it. And so it's just, and running is big on that. People get out their tri-calc, after their long run pace and think, yeah, this is gonna be my Ironman pace. It's just it's all race pace stuff, and there's a very,
from experience, just add a minute to that pace.
Yeah, at least.
Whatever you think.
I just think race pace in general is way overused as well, in a lot of areas because it's just teaching and programming you for one speed. But again, it's more fun, I think, sometimes for a lot of athletes to do race pace efforts because they get to obsess over numbers but if you're just, doing the work and doing what the day gives you, because race pace usually is forced in training anyway, because your body's not making up its mind, you're making up your mind for the body. And a lot of times that does not work out very well.
Yeah, I mean, in race paces, there's so many variables, and what you said earlier was kind of stuck in my mind, is why train your body to do things it doesn't need to, when we were talking about track. And when I think about race pace, like even when I'm at the lab and it's this old airfield where we ride our bikes and it's really flat, but it's super windy. So my big thing out there a lot of times is I focus on gearing, even though it's a flat, ride. I'm always up and down and like coming out of these corners, going flat into wind and dealing with this like sort of like slow down, try and pick it back up slowly. You know what I mean? Like you don't sprint ever in a race. I mean,
yep.
It's a bad move. I mean, to try and like just put your head down and sprint up a hill or something like that. You always want to find those little pockets where you're kind of, like you're saying with a big engine, kind of, you're not going 0 to 60 in 4 seconds or whatever. You're just, it's a Cadillac that's sort of building speed. And those are the kind of things I like to think about with running and cycling. And you talk about it, swim a lot. Is like you need those kind of bursts where you kind of pick it up and then you got to be able to settle back in. And it's those little areas of increasing tempo and decreasing tempo and stuff like that at least me, I like to think about those things and practice those things a lot, because it's those moments when you have to be under control. And for me, that's the key to racing, is be able to control your effort and, like you're saying, your energy and not over, redline it.
Yeah, you need to be able to. You need to prepare and be able to handle surges. You don't need to just, look at it as like surging all day, and I think that, like you said, like so many athletes will like they'll just totally just almost dig themselves like just a giant hole in a race where it's a hill or it's like, and you see it a lot of times with athletes who obsess over like a miles per hour. And they see like the wind picks up and it's dwindling and things get harder and this and that. And then all of a sudden you see, the wind coming, like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. This is really hurting. But I'm losing my 20 miles per hour, and my whole tri-calc day has been based on averaging 20 miles an hour on the bike. And now it's dwindling. All my whole race has gone to shit. And so it's just you have to be, there's just so many things you have to be objective and responsible for in terms of training and racing, and most oftentimes it all comes back to, acceptance. That is, it's a very tough thing to do, but it's also one you really want to practice in training. As being responsible and taking things as they come and then navigating your way through everything. And it really does pay off in the long run. Yeah.
I mean, as you're saying that, I did that last year at Louisville. I had done the course before. I had this magic number in my mind, and then we got out there and it was cold and rainy and windy as all get out, and my race started crumbling at mile 80 or 90, and I didn't know how to react to it. I did, but I didn't, It's like, well, maybe things will change, and maybe I just keep pushing and I think I That's a weird thing, too, is like mile 80 to 90 on a bike or something, and you feel that average mile per hour going down right there, and you try to sustain it right there for those 10 miles, and that could be the difference in your race. You know what I mean?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And it's like we talked about at Wisconsin with Barlow. people try to hammer that hill, and while in Tour de France comparisons, it's not a hill, but it's a big hill for Ironman, and a lot of people burn their biscuits right there, and they don't realize how much it hurts them for the rest of the race.
Mm-hmm.
And that can happen, multiple times on a bike if you got miles per hour in your head and you're just trying to sustain it, and all of a sudden, you're having a hard time with it with about 40 miles left, and you're overdoing it for 40 miles, just barely. You're not like sprinting up a hill, but that accumulated effort is just really going to backfire once you get off the bike.
Yep. Always does.
Those are the little things. It's like, wow, that's, I guess that's the advantage of having a power meter, which I don't, and I'm sure a lot of people don't, but that's why I have to calibrate my internal power meter.
That's right. It's important. It's just as important.
Yeah, and I kind of joke about it, but I do that. And I can tell, but your mind sometimes won't let you. He won't let you slow down or take off the gas.
It's hard, man. It's hard to fight the governor and the accelerator all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to in training and in racing, because you don't want to, you just don't watch your fastest, and that's it. Like, that's honestly like so much of the key to racing well is so many athletes waste their biggest efforts and their biggest days and slam on the accelerator in training because they force it, and they don't even give themselves the opportunity to really lay on the accelerator when it comes to the race, because they just don't have it, because they burned a biscuit or they burnt a match in training. And most athletes will just tell you that. I mean, a lot of that's how we're like, I may have pushed it too much today, and the scariest thing for coaches is seeing
weird pride in that too.
I know there is. It's like it's seeing it after a run, and you're like, F me. After a bike, it's like, all right, big deal. You want to dig yourself a hole in the bike? I can handle that. I can live with that. Or in the pool. You can live with that too, but it's on the run where it kind of makes you're just super on to things. You're like, hey, so how you feel the next day? Or, yeah, I thought today was going to suck because of yesterday. You just got to kind of rein them in. And but on the flip side, that's I think another one of the psychological benefits with athletes that you work with that, that's why I've always hated like the Sunday long hard run and the Monday off. It's like worst idea ever. It's like you're basically like, because you don't train with continuity. It's like Monday through Sunday, so I've got this long run, then I got tomorrow off, so I can just push it because I've got tomorrow off.
Yeah, right.
It's everything you do is 1 through 7. They start 1 through 7. They start with 1 through 7. They start with 1 through 7 instead of just day after day after day after day after day. They all connect. Everything connects to one another and benefits the next one and complements the next one, and it's like, I just can't even like do it. And I think a lot what some people really or maybe not, I'm saying undervalue, but don't obviously also fully appreciate is, from myself as a coach, I can tell more from, and this is probably different from a lot of coaches probably, and especially athletes or self-coach athletes, because I have our athletes swim hard, and I have them swim hard a lot. And for me, the swim is the greatest dictator of how someone's total fatigue is going. And it's a safe place to test it, because it is full body, but it's in water. So if I have somebody who's like ran really, really long on a Sunday, we usually have maybe just like an only swim the next day. But if they really, really struggle with the swim, then they're really, really fatigued, because you got to use like we talked about in the last podcast, swimming is running on concrete. You still need all of your core, lower back, legs, arms, chest, you need everything. And if you are really fatigued the next day in the water, is you're just super fatigued overall. That's usually where I can tell, or even just cumulative fatigue. I can usually tell with an athlete in the pool if they're like 10 seconds slower per 100, or they just comment like, yeah, today was a struggle. I just had zero energy. Well, then I know that it's we need to I need to adjust things, and we need to take a few more easy days, or you overextend yourself on the run yesterday, or maybe we need to add an extra day of recovery. Because swimming is also the place where it's, in my opinion, it's the hardest to flip that switch if I'm going to force myself to work harder. People will do it on the run because I think they love to do it, whereas especially on the bike too. I just didn't have it today, but it's like those two places are the safest places you can test out to see if you're over fatigued or not. You don't want to find that out on the run. But I think that's why it's also nice to complement, these back-to-back days and not that, traditional Monday off. It's so incredibly overrated anyway. I would love to know who invented the mandatory Monday day off. And why that ever became a thing. It's like it's the same. Maybe it was the same person who started the fake rumor of 90 a cadence of 90 or above is optimal for triathlon spinning. And did you actually know? And we're not going to go off in cycling here because we're already running out of time. But I actually read a study recently on cadence. Is that the trained cyclists were asked to do I think it was a 25 or 30K time trial, and to pick their own cadence and go all out. They all picked 90 or 95, even though the science says that and the data shows that 90 and 95 is not the optimal cadence for efforts like that. And so it's just another one of those things that people have been drug and fooled into believing is one of those things that you have to do when now I don't really think this is a huge compliment, but now I love it when athletes are like, I don't even know what I used to do with like days off. They're like they hate them. They don't want them. They just want to like stay in the groove and keep working. They're like, I don't want a day off. Like, well, I don't even know what I used to do with the day off. It's just weird. And so yeah, if you're one of those Monday's my day off thing, I challenge you to rethink that and actually ask why that's actually a thing.
Was that guilt? Because I didn't take the day of rest on Sunday.
No, it's not guilt. It's just
I don't know.
Some friend told them something, and they all of a sudden it's tri-gospel. There's so many of those tri-gospels out there that are so much garbage. I would say that there's a lot of tri-gospel out there, but I would say that the 3-hour long run, the cadence of 90, and the Monday day off is in like the Tri-Scientology department of just total falsehood and garbage.
The Tri-Scientology department. It's water cooler Monday, man. It's like, you won't believe what I did this weekend. Oh no, don't worry, I've got a day off today.
Yeah, I got a day off today, man. Yes. Get back to work. Yeah. Yesterday was Happy Easter. Today is Happy Get Off Your Keister. Go to work. Quit taking a day off.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of cars and chassis, I'm about to head over to take my car in again. It's got some electrical issues. No big deal. It's I got a smiley face on.
You got a smiley face.
Oh, please join our closed group on Facebook. Search Crushing Iron Group. Please check out crushingiron.com if you have inclinations to get some coaching for the season. It's here, and coaching will matter leading up to your big race. We've got pricing on there and all the philosophies and 150 plus podcasts, and there's all kinds of information out there. See where we're coming from. Try camps, swim camps, and next week we will, let's see, Thursday? Are we leaving Thursday?
Yeah, dude.
Okay, Thursday it is. We're heading to
Probably earlier than you're used to, but we're leaving Thursday.
I might have to sleep in the car.
That's all right, man. Just as long as you're ready to leave on time, you can sleep for the first 3 or 4 hours.
No, I meant the night before.
Oh, I'm gonna come pick you up, man. I'm all good. I can just as long as I can get you in the car, and I can help you in. You can still be half asleep if you need to. Or do you know what? Just do this. Put all of your luggage and stuff underneath the back awning, and I'll load it up, and then I can just help you out. And if I need to wheel you out, I can.
Dude.
Okay,
But we're going to be coming live, or not live. We're going to be coming from Texas, Galveston or Houston, with the next podcast, probably, maybe.
Yeah.
Or unless
we may not make it the whole way. We'll be coming you from on the road.
On the road.
Either somewhere in the depths of Arkansas or Texas will be the next triathlon podcast from us.
As Coach Robbie sets his sights on Ironman Texas 70.3.
Woohoo.
That'll be fun.
All right, dude.
Okay, so if you're in Texas, you're doing Texas, make sure to keep an eye out for us. And I'm going to be down there supporting and shooting videos and, I don't know, maybe training a little bit.
That's right.
Chattanooga 70.3 is coming up.
Coming on us.
We are in the season. Okay, buddy.
Sound good, dude. Talk to you later.
All right, man. See ya.